So if you watch my channel or some of my recent videos at least, you probably noticed I'm using the same footage in this video of my No You build. A build in Borderlands 3 where all I do is point at things and absolutely melt the hardest content in the game. And what if I told you I could have actually made this build better by using the Guardian Angel, a gun that is able to give you up to 500% bonus damage on all of your damage sources, depending on how far away you are from enemies. But personally, I don't like this gun because it is a severely power-crept item they introduced with the Season Pass 2 Battle Passes. And today, we're going to be talking about how Borderlands 3 has power-crept items as each DLC came out to probably build hype and sell them to players. So if you didn't watch my last video right before this one, called How the Buff and Nerf Meta Ruined Borderlands 3 and Wonderlands Launches, I'll link it in the pinned comment so you can go check it out. But for a TLDR, we talked about how Gearbox spent weeks on launch nerfing the fun of players to try and shake up the meta and create a pseudo content cycle, causing players to have to constantly refarm builds and gear. And today, we're going to talk about how none of that buffing and nerfing made any sense at all, considering the fact that now that all the content's out, I can now simply point at things and kill them in Borderlands 3's endgame on the hardest difficulty. And I'm not even using the most optimal gear. I can go get the most power-crept item that came out with the vault cards. So to start this story, we have to go back to DLC 1, when Gearbox dropped the most broken weapon players have ever seen, called the Ion Cannon, with the flavor text, "Fun detected, obliterate." It's almost the flavor text of Randy Pitchford himself coming to drop the hammer on some of our favorite guns and builds, because this was the first rocket launcher in the game with 100,000 damage on the weapon card. For those who don't remember, the max level at the time was 50, so we had not seen a gun this strong enter the game yet, and it only took a couple weeks to find this gun itself getting a nerf. Now, this nerf was absolutely justified. They made it so it consumes 5 or 6 ammo per shot, depending on which variant you had, and to be honest, this makes absolute sense. In these games, when you get a really strong rocket launcher, a lot of the time they consume multiple ammo, so you can really just use them for burst damage rather than just using it for mobbing and kind of trivializing the game. But did anyone notice that the Kickcharger exists now? A DLC weapon added in Arms Race, a literal power-crept version of the Ion Cannon. It only consumes 1 ammo per shot, and if you slide before shooting it, it's automatically fully charged, so you don't have to wait for that pesky charge time, and it has half the reload speed of what the Ion Cannon was nerfed to. Now, to continue this story, we take a look at Mayhem 2.0. And we're just going to go ahead and put some of the guns on the screen, which were literal clones and direct upgrades of the ones that came before. The Reflux is a clone of the Brainstormer, double the damage on the card. The Monarch is a clone of the Dictator, double the damage on the card. The Plague Bearer is a clone of the Scourge, I think only almost double the damage on the card. Literally just releasing clones of previous guns in a new DLC, or in this case, a new event update, to try and market the game to players again. And there is a ton more examples of this if you just go through the DLCs and some of the new updates. But there is nothing more egregious than the Blade Fury, a new weapon that is a power-crept face puncher that not only does melee damage with bullets, but it also does splash damage with bullets. This gun is absolutely broken and possibly one of the most powerful in the game. And I just gotta say that a bunch of people wish that the Psycho Stabber did melee damage on it. You know, that was the original gun that people thought would shoot melee. But besides the point, this gun came alongside the Guardian Angel in the Borderlands 3 Battle Passes. And yes, I'm calling them the Battle Passes instead of Vault Cards, because if you remember how Morn and Afterkill leaked these Battle Passes back in 2020, these guns would have gotten added to the game at that point with a $5 or $10 paywall per Vault Card, adding the literal most broken items into the game. And since they would have been limited time items, they would have tried to capitalize on the FOMO to sell this to players. Just remember that the entire DLC 6 is called Director's Cut, where they added a ton of cut content back into Borderlands 3, like the Hemovorus raid boss that IGN leaked way before the game even dropped. We thought Hemovorus was going to be in Borderlands 3 on launch, but it wasn't. The cut scenes from the story, like the Maya funeral scene, was the most notable, where they actually finally gave Ava some redeeming qualities, and if this was in the game, there's a chance players would have liked her, given that she admits her wrongs and how she got Maya killed. This is actually a ton of character development for her. And just a ton of other cut content in general. If you have the DLC 6, you know what I'm talking about. But to me, this basically confirms that the vault cards were also cut content. You know, maybe dropping a $5 battle pass and a $60 base game seemed a little too scummy to them at the time, and they decided not to do it after Morning After Kill leaked it and the community was freaking out about it. But the point being that Gearbox creates power creep to sell DLC. There's honestly enough evidence, if you just pay attention to their actions, nerfing all kinds of fun gear and builds early on that we covered in my last video, and then going on to release the most absolute power crept items and DLCs that BL3's endgame is honestly trivial nowadays. Because the game is in such a state that I can literally just point at enemies on the hardest content and kill them with my no-you drone build. And to me, my question is, why are we spending weeks and weeks and weeks and months nerfing the funnest gear, the funnest builds on launch? You know, just because there's no DLC out yet, why can't we be powerful at the start of the game? But when the game's life cycle is over, when the content cycle is over, you can just go farm like half the guns from these DLCs and completely melt the hardest difficulty ever. I mean, take a look at Zane, a Vault Hunter that was considered so bad by everyone at launch. I found a build called Infinite Grenade Zane, and they nerfed it. They made it so that grenade damage no longer healed you with salvation, and they nerfed the Hex Grenade, the -- 1 grenade I was using in that build, making Zane pretty bad again. And then we found another Zane build where you could give your clone infinite ammo by giving him a face puncher and then equipping a cut purse. He would give you ammo for any gun that you were holding, not just shotgun ammo, and I would spam baby makers or rocket launchers. And this was another OP Zane build that we found at launch, and they nerfed this as well. Why are they nerfing Zane at launch when he only has 2 broken builds that honestly aren't even broken? They can just keep up with the other Vault Hunters. But then when DLC 1 comes out, we finally release the See Undead class mod to make him a great character. Or when the DLC 5 comes out, we finally give him a good skill tree with an action skill that makes sense with See in Red to basically make him work at endgame. So I just feel there's an obvious pattern of behavior here that I am pointing out, because if you guys pay attention to it, they nerf our fun gear and builds and then release more broken gear and builds. Basically, we spent all our time farming for our original builds, they nerf them, and then they power creep the shit out of the game to make us go farm again. And it just feels like they're trying to create content around farming, when that's not the only thing we want to do. I mean, listen, I'm a Borderlands player, this is a looter shooter game, I love a good farm. But if you let me keep my old build and have fun, I will still go farm for the new stuff to try another build. And maybe there's some data they have to support that players don't do this, but I just feel they pushed way more players away with the nerfs rather than the players they pulled in with the power crept items. Now, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Be sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.